So what are some of the thought processes you employ when coming up with creative ideas for learning?
Creative ideas for learning. Well, I guess, I'm in an interesting position because, my day job has been teaching on the university level for now, I guess, 12 years. What I'm doing when I'm not at my day job is actually directly related to what my day job is, right? So I'm in my studio making my own work and thinking through things and trying to figure things out, like in my own art. And my day job involves helping other students do that, helping other artists kind of figure out ways of doing that. So some processes I use for creativity and learning, I think I often ask myself, well, what is it that I'm interested in, and what is it that I'm kind of having problems with, or what are the challenges that are kind of interesting to me at this moment? And I assume that those challenges will be interesting to my students. So I kind of defer to my own experiences as an artist when I'm trying to think through ways of manufacturing experiences so that artists can learn. I think, well, what is engaging to me, and how can this kind of be reformatted so it will fit my students' needs? So that's kind of a way that I think about my own, that I think about creativity and learning for my students. But I want to be more specific. How are the ways that I teach problem solving to my students? Well, I guess I have a lot of things that I say and a lot of lessons that I give that try to get students to look beyond like the surface, the sort of immediate answer to something. I find that I can pose a problem that may be complex enough to have more than one solution to a group of students, and there is a kind of obvious answer, and usually that one comes up right away, and I'm like, okay, now that that's in the air, we're just going to take that and toss it out, and we have to kind of consider more unusual solutions. And I find that kind of divergence of thinking in problem solving often yields more interesting results. But I like to try and create classroom assignments where students feel like they can take risk. In fact, maybe even students are required to take risk. I guess that would be my answer. So I pay very close attention to a student's individual progress because I think that's part of my role as a professor, is to kind of attend to an individual's progress. But I also think about the ways students diverge from one another when they're working through a creative scenario that is of my own making. And I find those divergences, like the ways in which people interpret things differently, to be very inspiring. And so this is a roundabout way of saying that my students just do things and make these creative leaps that I would never ever make because they are different people and they're formed by different experiences. And I am a person who has a kind of hunger for that, so I derive a lot of satisfaction from seeing that happen in the classroom.
How do you teach problem-solving processes to students?
I guess it depends. It depends on a number of factors. It depends on kind of where the student is in the program, what kind of experiences they've had already. How do I teach? Well, I guess the most straightforward answer to that question is I just put them in situations where they have to do it over and over and over again. And I try and actually create assignments or scenarios, as I like to think of them, where failure is actually likely. So something won't work out and a student kind of realizes that okay, that didn't work out and now I have to kind of go back to the drawing board, because I think that actually a lot of art making, we learn much more from our failures than we do from our successes. And so I try and create scenarios where the failures are kind of really are learning opportunities.
how do you define creativity in a person, and then how do you bring it out once you see it?
Well, yeah, that's a big question. It is hard. It is hard. And I think I don't think I'm a master. I think I have a lot to learn. I think one of the first things you could do is, kind of help someone with the myths that they may have surrounding creativity. I had a student a few years ago who genuinely believed that the only way to be authentically creative was to make everything up, from scratch, and that only truly creative people just were kind of blessed with these bottomless imaginations that could, that were just endlessly bankable, and that anything other than that was like has been done, was unacceptable, or worse, was just not creative or wasn't art. And I have never believed that. I actually don't think that creativity is making things up. I think creativity is actually taking things and bringing them together in ways that are new. And so I have a lot of exercises that are maybe simple at first, but have kind of a high success rate, where it's like, how can we take these two things and put them together in a way that just has never been done before? And I will kind of walk students through these processes that maybe have like a fairly high success rate, but will sort of open their eyes to the fact that like they are capable of making creative decisions. In fact, they do so constantly. We all are, because we're not algorithm performing machines. So that's, I think, kind of starting small, and also making sure that a student is on the same page with you about what creativity really is. Because that student who was walking around with that idea, I mean, she had already decided what it was, and she wasn't going to let herself. She wasn't going to go anywhere with that idea, But what are some other ways to incorporate it into the classroom? I think as a teacher, something that you can do, and something that really you kind of got to do, is to pose a problem to the classroom, and then just let people sort of shout out responses to that problem. Like, okay, what's the solution to this problem? And people are going to shout out responses, and the first 5 are just throwaways. You know what I mean? You just be like, okay, what else? Okay, what else? Okay, what else? And you just kind of encourage a student to go deeper and deeper and deeper, past the point where they think that they are dry. Not every issue or not every problem necessarily yields a creative answer.
But it's stimulating that creative thinking.
Yeah.
And pushing beyond.
Yeah. And I think that kind of creating an environment where that is a pleasurable experience, as opposed to, someone feels like they're being interrogated. I don't know. I mean, I have good days and bad. Some days I'm better at it than others, because I fall into the trap, I think, too often of thinking well, this person just can't do it. And that's really not fair, because of course everybody can. I certainly think people have aptitudes. I think some people have a higher aptitude for it than others. But it's something that we're all capable of by definition, by virtue of the fact that we're human. I mean, we must make these kinds of associations in order to live our lives.